say, how are your wellness tools doing, or did you try this, or something like that, and that can be very effective. I do make sure I get permission from everybody, because again, I'm not the drug and drink police. I'm also not going to go back to the ICCM and tell them every single thing that that member said to me. But if I'm freaking out, and somebody else knows that if I put my friggin' earplugs in, I'll feel better, and I can't think of it because I'm freaking out, and you say to me, where are the earplugs? I'm like, oh, yes. So sometimes that, and by the way, they're right here. Oh, yes.
You know, going back to the ICCM going, it's not just that. I think it's the more people that get involved, the better, because she shadowed me when she was hired. And the members really like that. I mean, they asked me the next time, where is your friend?
Yeah.
You know, and she has a situation with a son that related exactly to a member who's dealing with her daughter that way.
Yep.
So she stepped in and shared that family component of it, you know, and the member actually, you know, well, how's she doing? You know, is she coming again? Which, you know, I kind of went, you know, I didn't take offense, but you know, I'm just saying that the more people that get involved, even if it's just an apprentice or someone like that, they go and see the member, the more the member feels, you know, cared about.
For sure. And we're talking about people here who are often quite isolated, right? Like don't have a lot of nods. One of the other things that I'm interested in is the understanding, but also the challenges. What are the challenges for peers and people in traditional roles working together?
One challenge that affects me is the burnout or becoming overwhelmed. If you get a lot of if you could spread them out, the difficult crisis, it'd be okay. But sometimes you get them all in a day or within a couple of hours, and it really, to me, becomes quite difficult to just remember to take care of yourself. So that's one of the challenges that I personally face. And for example, lately I've noticed that in the evening I normally kind of cut off, you know, okay, this is my day and I'm concerned about my members and do everything I can, but in the evening, you know, that's my time to do the things I need to do. And lately I've been concerned in the evening about my members. So what I've noticed is that I need to work on my wellness plan more.
Yep.
Because I've become a little bit worn out or burnt out, so it's flooding over into my time, and that doesn't help.
Yes.
So those are just some challenges, you know, I personally face.
Are there any challenges that are specifically related to working alongside or in collaboration with people in traditional roles?
I think so, definitely. Yes. I think it's just the opposite end of the spectrum as far as worldview.
Yes.
And like the clinical mindset, I think, is like, let's put people into boxes so we can manage them, and we'll do what we need to do to them so that they're manageable. And kind of the peer role is the opposite. It's let's empower these people, let's find out what works for them so they can help themselves. You know, it's uplifting, it's individual focused, where I think a lot of clinical stuff is like, okay, well, diagnosis and then like medication, and you know, if they won't do it on their own, we'll try to coerce them. I mean, I've heard from the clinical roles at our company, like, well, let's just try to Marchman Act this person. Let's legally force them into treatment. I mean, it's all about managing people and instead of connecting with people. Mm-hmm. And I think it's hard to explain what we do to someone with that worldview of let's just get these people under control, you know?
And you want to make an overgeneralization. The clinical model is very patronizing, and we are not. We don't know better than them. Whereas the clinical model, I know better, and I know which pill, and this pill knows better, and you know, let's make all your decisions for you. And we don't do that. We empower people to do it on their own.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Kelsey said, one member has hip problems. So he goes to the hospital. He has no PCP. He has no ICCM. He has no pain management. He had an incident when he was 17. He's 38 right now. And so he's been living with that pain all his life. But, not able to manage it. Everybody don't go to the doctor, especially men.
Yeah.
And, but he's been coming up as he needs, like she said, Marshman Act, state hospital. Just because you're in pain? Are you serious right now? You're going to send me to a state hospital because I'm in pain? And I can't have surgery because of the incident that I had at 17 caused me brain damage, so no doctor will touch the hip surgery. So, but you want to send me to a state hospital. When I saw that, I was kind of upset. Like, why would you send? And when I spoke to the family members and they confirmed some stuff, I was really kind of upset. Like, I could be in that position.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to put yourself in other people's shoes. What if I have a whole lot of pain stuff going on, back, hip, all of that. But if I kept running to the hospital because I had a primary and I can't get a surgery to help myself with to alleviate the pain, you're going to lock me up in a hospital. Like, yeah.
So you got no liberty and you've got pain.
Right.
One thing I'd like to put forward for your consideration, something that I've heard at some of the organisations, is people in traditional roles who have their own lived experience. And I heard this also previously with the last bit of research, managers saying, if I've got a mental health nurse or if I've got a social worker who has a lived experience, why do I need a peer worker? Do I need a peer worker, and why?
Because peers aren't qualified to do what the social worker is. I realize that they're thinking you can get 2 for 1, but I don't know everybody here's experience with social workers. They usually want social workers to do 20 jobs anyways, so now let's add one more thing to them. And social workers have a high burnout rate at least in the US. So if we can take one thing off their plate, and I think also a big point of contention was brought up earlier, we feel, or some people feel guilty about being paid for this job. The flip side of that is there are many people with that are on disability because of their mental illness. Now you're giving them a job so that they can be independent from the government supporting them, and it does a lot for their mental health, just being able to support themselves. So if you're making the social worker do this job, you're now keeping someone on disability, essentially.
Yeah.
You're not allowing that person to grow.
Yep. One of the things that I think I've thought about recently that I'd never really thought about before either is that when one person, well, even for me, when I got a job and got off disability, that impacted my entire family. And that one person getting in work is not just one person getting in work. But do you agree that that's sort of like got a flow on? I've got some notes.
We get that question, I don't understand what you're going to do for me. And as soon as I hear that, I'm like, okay, here we got to back up. I didn't explain what I do well, because I'm not going to do for you, period. But there is a lot of that. What can you do this way? And sometimes I find myself, sometimes it's easy for me to answer, but there are days, and maybe it's the burnout days, or crisis of confidence days, where I'm like, what am I going to do? What do they need me? Why am I better? Or why am I not better? Why should I be part of this team? So it's a hard one.
Yeah, I think that comes when you see and you try to help individuals, and when you see some things are not working, maybe because they don't want it at that time, and it's kind of like, yeah, why am I doing this? Like, they can't get no help. There are no resources. There's no this. There's no that. People are not picking up their phone.
Transportation isn't coming.
And it's like you put all that hard work in, and now transportation don't just blow up the whole shenanigans.
I just had that happen.
Yeah, like, because people don't trust. These members do not trust at all. They have no friends. They have no support from their family because they're tired. And, you know, and now they wearing you out. You know, you get wore out because they have no friends and no support. So you get the phone calls, you get to talk 2 hours sometimes, you know, because sometimes they'll ride out because they never talk to anyone. They don't know who to vent to. And here you come along and say you got lived experience. And oh, now they everything that been going on for 20 years, they're telling it to you right now.
But that's where the boundaries become so important. You were asking about that, you were saying about this. And for me, learning to turn the phone off, letting members know the phone is off. On my message saying, you know, basically if you have an emergency call, I mean, that's a script that we got, but if you have an emergency call this, but letting the member know I'm not your emergency contact. You call me, I'm going to either take it to somebody else, or if you call me and say, I feel like hurting myself, you're putting me in a position, you say you're a danger to yourself or others, but that boundary so that I'm actually not necessarily on the phone for 2 hours.
Could you talk to me about what other things help and support you in the job, and not just things that you do for yourselves, but what within the workplace is supportive? What assists you to do your job and to look after yourselves?
Getting together with the other peers.
Right.
Time together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very, just fills me up again, and I know, you know, that they're like, Linda just said I had a day like that the other day. You know, you get to kind of just identify with what we all know, the kind of work we do, and that's just helpful.
Positive feedback. You always get negative feedback. You know, you can do this better. You can do this. You didn't do this. So when you get an email and it says you did a really good job, you know, that goes a long way, whether it's from your boss, a coworker, you know, or someone like that. You know, I mean, we all do happy birthdays. That's nice, you know, on your birthday to open your email and get 9 happy birthdays. And, you know, but just positive feedback from either coworkers, clients, anyone, you know, really goes a long way rather than just deal with one problem and be told you didn't do it right, you know.
Yeah, and then, you know, sometimes because we're human beings too, we're going through our own stuff, you know, and then even though we're going through whatever, we have to check that stuff at the door when we go out to engage other people. You know, you have to check it at the door, whatever you got going on, hold on, wait till at 5:30, and then you can deal with your stuff right there. You know, and then if you have a day where you're dealing with a lot with individuals, you know, because they got lots of things going on, you come like you done for the day. Like, you know, there is no more you, there is no more nothing. You just want to, you know, just flop on the floor or something, let the puppies lick all over you.
You know, there's a difference. We work remotely.
Yes.
And the last experience, the most recent before this job experience I had, we worked doing this work. We were working out of drop-in centers. And we were able to have physical face-to-face meetings every week. So the support that I find that I get from my supervisors and fellow peers is really excellent considering the constrictions of working remotely. But there's no question, having been here now for a year, that I sincerely, deeply miss those weekly face-to-face, because that's where what we were just saying about me getting together and seeing one another, that was a shot in the arm every single week. And I can really see a difference for my own well-being. So we do get the support, we get the positive, I get the positive feedback, I feel encouraged by the meetings we have every other week or once a week about supporting. There's a lot of focus on us taking care of ourselves, and we discuss that in our meetings. But there's nothing that can really compare to me to the face-to-face when you can look at a body language, you're saying something and you're nodding. And there's a connection. I'm saying something and she's going like this, I'm like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Even last night at dinner, I bit into my food and I was like, whoa! And I still needed Dana to bite into that same food and say, yeah, you're right. Something's wrong. You can't get that on the phone as much. So that the peer relating to one another, talking about what's going on, not just with our members, but how it's affecting us, is, I think, the most important support you can get.
Yeah, I mean, we do get support. Kelsey, Dana, you know, other people I know, other co-workers, ICCM, they support me because at some points I was like, I got to leave this SH, whatever. You know.
That's okay, you can swear. That's good.
Yeah. So, you know, sometimes I have those days where I'm like, man, I'd rather go work at a fast food restaurant. You know, flip some burgers or something. You know, do something different. Because, yeah, it can become overwhelming at times. And you literally do. I'm a big believer in support. You do need support. Hence why I have 2 dogs, because I know they don't judge. They're not going to say nothing. All they're going to do is lick me. They want to eat. They want to go to the park, to poop, and lick me some more.
Yep.
And so, you know, that's it. You know, but sometimes you don't get that same thing from human beings.
Absolutely. So you were going to say something earlier
Yes,
as well. Yeah.
I found that the way that the apprentice program has been set up is very supportive in terms of me actually deciding to go ahead and test the waters.
Yes.
Because maybe if I had heard that it would be like 40 hours right away, you know, it might have felt a little bit overwhelmed.
Yes.
So the fact that there was that flexibility helped me, you know, to start testing the waters. So
Yeah.
I think that's a good support.
Nice. Any other strategy?
I think what helps peers to be the peers, like that was the question, right?
Yeah.
Is the flexibility in the work.
Yeah.
When I worked at the psychiatric hospital, and even now, I like to find weird, fun things to do that just kind of knock people off their socks. So I went to work one day dressed as a fairy because it was National Fairy Day. And then I come in, you know, around Christmas, and I love Christmas. My middle name is Noelle. It's kind of a serious situation. Like, my dad is already watching Christmas movies, okay? It's serious in my house. So, you know, and I did that too. On July 24th, I came in dressed up head to toe with a Christmas hat on and everything. Everybody's like, what? And I go, we have 6 months until Christmas. And they're just like, really? And I'm like, yes. And so it gets people laughing, and so it pulls them out of what's going on up here. And I don't know that many clinicians are able to do that. Whereas the peers were able to be like, look, this is how it is. I love Christmas. I love football. What am I going to talk about most of my life? Christmas or football. And it gets people to, you know, stop for a second, and then you're able to go into the nitty gritty of the rap and whatever. But then you also have that other rapport of like, look, we're human beings. And I'm just waiting. There's 5 more Saturdays until football, and I don't know what to do with my life.
A peer previously has said she was a peer manager, and she said one of the things she loved about recruiting peers was that we want all your quirks. We want you to come as your whole person, whether it's Christmas and football or it's, you know, hockey and puppies and whatever it is, that you bring that whole person to the role and you share that, not just your mental health experiences, but who you are essentially as a person.
And you know what? I like that we have those wellness bags right there because those are icebreakers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an icebreaker. I think you need an icebreaker when you engage people for the first time.
Explain what's in there. She
Uh,
doesn't know those.
you can see if I remember peppermint, I guess for a bad breath. Because a tea bag, a rubber band, a rock.
Huh.
And
Sometimes
I love the rocks. I have one somebody gave me one.
pipe cleaner.
I'm not sure if that one has.
That's for when they smoke dope.
Something that looks like pot, but isn't.
Yeah, if you want.
It's lavender.
That pot's a good icebreaker.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's-
And
it's-
yeah, what's that?
It's basically
lavender.
you know, wellness doesn't have to cost
Lavender,
anything.
Sorry,
I've
the
heard
tape's just not going to pick
Yeah,
up if
I've
we
heard
get
it.
it.
I smelled it.
It smells like lavender.
It doesn't smell like lavender to me either.
Is it lavender?
It's lavender. Doesn't
Okay.
All right, Dana, you were just explaining.
So the idea is that they can put their business card in there, and it's a introduction to that wellness can be simple, free, like it doesn't have to cost anything, and that you can do it for yourself. So it's supposed to be really using your senses. There's the breathing exercise. We used to have tea, but I guess we ran out of tea. So basically, yeah, that's how we kind of introduced it.
And those pipe
I have other
cleaners,
things I add to mine too.
Yeah.
you can't go to a training for this work without the pipe cleaners. So
Yeah,
I started taking photos of what people are creating in the trainings of the pipe cleaners, and people would pick up the pipe cleaner out of the bag and go, "What's this for?" And I said, "Look at this! Look what you can make."
So it's a way to start a conversation with somebody as well, and whether they are attracted to the mint, be me,
And it's-
or what have you.
It's nice when they're homeless. That's happened to a lot of my people. I've actually started, I had to get permission, giving out some second ones.
Yeah.
Because people had it and they became homeless. And having a little bag like that they can take to either a shelter, or even if they're not in a shelter, they can get some hot water and make tea, or the little worry stone. There's generally something in there that they'll make a connection with.
yeah,
So
and I always encourage people to write on that stone.
Oh, I haven't done that. That's a great idea.
Yeah, color it, write on it, a message or something.
I'm aware that we're fast running out of time. There's two things left that I'd love to just ask you about. One is like cultural issues. So as peers and working with people from different cultures, what do you come up against? What's working? What needs to be looked at more, I guess.
Can you expound on that?
So when you're working with people maybe of your own culture or of different cultures, as peers, are there challenges? Are there benefits as a peer working with people from different cultures? Are there ways that you engage with understanding, learning about different cultures so that you can do your work better? Or
I've had a lot of experience with a wide range of clients at the psychiatric hospital. I had several clients tell me that I couldn't possibly know anything because I was young enough to be their grandchild, and I'm like, that's actually not true. And so we would just sit there and kind of have a debate, but it ended up in a conversation, and that opened the door that he realized that I wasn't just giving him a script, that it was actually honest. Worked with people or with deaf clients, and I made the effort to learn 10, 15 signs so that I was able to communicate with them just a little bit. And that went so far. They always got excited when I walked onto the ward, because one in particular, he basically wanted the entire world to be deaf. He didn't like hearing people, and that's quite common in that culture. And so to have that rapport, just because I took the time to appreciate and understand his culture, made me a better peer and was able to be effective in our job.
Great, thank you.
I have a lot of members that don't read or write, and that was a real challenge at first. Because how do we work on rap? You know, I can write down, but they can't read it. And so basically with them, I learned to help them memorize it by repeating, and, you know, so that they had it in their brain a little easier, quicker than some of our other members who can write it down and refer back to it. So you've got to do a lot of repetition with them, and also try to establish whether they really want to learn to read or write, because some of them don't. And I thought they would all want to learn to read or write, but some of them are so used to it and so used to being dependent in that way that they don't really want to put in the effort to read or write. But I have a few that did, so I got them into some programs to help them do that. And also I happen to have a bunch of books on beginning, learning to read or write that were left over from grandchildren. So, but it was interesting that some people that's not something that's really that important to them. They've learned to get along without reading or writing. And that was hard for me to accept. And the other thing was, how do I work in the ghetto without being scared to death for my car and various other things, because there are a lot of ghettos in Jacksonville. And so what I did was I had a peer help me. One of my members that I was working with, and we walked a lot of places, and he showed me where I could go and couldn't go, and who could watch my car for me, and little tricks of the trade, and he really did help a lot. He was one of my members that I had for a long time. When I first met him, I was scared to death of him. I met him at MHRC, which is one of our providers, and they put us in a room together with nobody else in there, and he's a little black guy with long dreads, and at the time had a big frown on his face. And I was really afraid. There was no way. There was not like, here's your emergency button, or there's a window we're watching through. There's nobody in there. And I could hear them walking down the hallway. And yes, I sat with my, near the door and everything, as close as I could to the door. But then I learned that he was just totally harmless and looking for any kind of help I could give him. And he was homeless and living in a shed in his sister's backyard. This is the kind of shed you would put your lawnmower in, but no electricity, no heat, no bathroom. And that's where he lived when I first met him. But anyway, he helped me a lot, and I think of him every time I go into those areas, because he was just really helpful. And it took away that fear. But he also taught me a lot of things that I needed to be watchful for. The drug deals going on at the corner store, and why I would not want to stop at this store, and why I would want to go down the street to the next gas station. And, it's like, you don't want to go to that one. And one of my members has an active drug house right next door to her. And at first it was the big question of, do I report this? Or what do I do about this? Am I obligated to report this? But I'm not obligated to, and she's still living there. And if she's willing, and now they've gotten used to me, so he waves to me when I get there. But at first I drive, when I'm in those areas, I drive my older car, which has very dark windows. And I think at first he thought maybe I was a policewoman or something, somebody that was, but now they all know me, so.
I have the opposite experience to what Jen had said. For me, I'll get a lot of you're an old white woman, or you're an old white Jewish woman if you get that far. How can you possibly understand what I'm going through? And it took time, but as it's evolved, one of the things that I find happens is I may say, I can't, so tell me about it. As long as I'm willing to listen, and it took a really long time to learn, I'm better at it. Some of you know this, some of you don't, but I'm better at listening than talking. Used to be. But not saying, oh, I get it. Oh, I know just what you mean. Mm-hmm. Oh, I understand. Well, no, I don't. I can't, but you can help explain it to me.
Yeah.
I have a woman right now I'm working with who she's like 26. Has quite a story. And she was showing me, I went to see her the other day, and the knee that she got shot in a few months ago was acting up. And she was telling me about, beating up her baby daddy's girlfriend. And honest to God, I'm pretty sure she was testing me and waiting to see how I would react. And not much phases me anymore, so it wasn't a matter of trying really hard to keep my face calm. I just was kind of listening. And since then, she's now starting to open up more about what's really going on and what she thinks she can get from the peer relationship, when in the beginning she completely wrote me off.
This is why I raised the question, because there has been criticisms from people of color and people of different cultures that the peer movement is predominantly white people and white culture, and that in some ways can exclude people unless there's attention paid to the cultural issues. So I want to make sure that in this research we are exploring that. Yeah,
I think, and that's probably true, and this is why I think, because most of the peers, individuals that are black and peers, have been in jail and prison and things of that nature. Not every peer is different, mind you, but I'm saying, speaking as being a black peer, and have worked with black peers, and I know that there's a law that was tweaked that kind of played a role in that too, especially